Lights, sirens, heroes. You're listening to the Unreasonable Grounds podcast.
Well, I just wanted to say that I have some bias about this episode that we'll see how it goes, but it's going to be tough for me, man. Hot Fuzz is one of my favorite movies ever, but I just can't get behind the Vauxhall.
It's a 98 for Christ's sake. So, I mean, I don't know. It's going to be tough either way. Well, and it was missing a door at one point. So, and welcome everybody back to the Unreasonable Grounds podcast. You've got Mike and Mike here. This is episode 15. This is the Hollywood Cup Car Challenge round. Who the hell knows? I think it's matchup number 4. Is it matchup number 4, Mikey?
I'll just consult my papers here. Yeah, I'll go with 4 because we're not really doing it in order. So I'm just going to say 4 because I don't know.
I think we've done about 4 of these, and I think we've done enough of them thus far that we can just say, okay, so it's the next round. It's the next matchup.
It is. It is. It is still the preliminary round of the playoffs here. We're not into the semifinals yet. So
no. It's first round.
Yeah.
So it's still the first round. Still, we're still first using round, that bracket format.
Yeah. And
this is far from any kind of competitive league.
It's like, whose line is it anyway? Where the points don't matter.
They don't ask how, they ask how many. So isn't that an old hockey saying they used to have? But here on the Unreasonable Grounds podcast, this is the first responder podcast for first responders by first responders. This is what we do. We have fun. And this whole idea of the podcast is just to stay on the lighter side of law enforcement and first responder work. And to stay on the lighter side, this is what we do. We've created the Hollywood Cop Car Challenge where we take fictional cop cars created for film on the big screen and we put them up against one another. So in this episode, what we're going to be doing is, very first thing, we are going to be breaking donut because it is the Unreasonable Grounds podcast tradition to be able to do so. Absolutely. We have to bless the episode itself, and we're going to get into that. And then the other thing we're going to do is we're going to put 2 vehicles up against one another. And for this episode, it's going to be the 2007 Chevy Tahoe from Bright and the 1998 Vauxhall Astra Mark, I'm going Roman numerals on this one, Mark 4 from Hot Fuzz. IV, Mark 4 from Hot Fuzz. So Mikey, let's get to the actual tradition because these are supposed to be mini episodes. Let's break donut.
So, As I reveal my donut, or donuts plural, as I said, because I've got 2 small ones, I am cheating a bit today.
But they're not
donuts. It's these are chocolate-filled croissants. Yes.
Okay. It's blasphemy,
yeah, but it's chocolate.
But It's like giving one of our people a Crown Vic, but it's like 10, 15 years old, and you're like, but it's a Crown Vic.
You're like, no, sorry, all we had was a Chev Caprice.
You're like, it's beat to crap. It's a Chevy Impala, like one of the 2004
Not
Impalas.
Even the Crown Vic.
No. Like, it's the Impala where everybody's like, yeah, that thing was garbage anyways. Okay, so you've got a couple of chocolate-covered croissants, which look fantastic. Yep. And where are they coming from?
Nothing but the best here for my mouth. This is straight out of Superstore.
How bougie of you! As you went to the Great Canadian Superstore.
I turned down the 4-pack of chocolate chip muffins that were $1 to buy these bad boys.
If you're ever wondering if we're sponsored or if we are in any way making any money from this, you bought those for how much were they? Are they day olds too?
No, well, they're allegedly fresh. So
always fresh. Okay.
Yeah, always fresh.
Always fresh. Okay, so you've got those. I'm sitting with what I feel is like possibly the most bougie thing compared to a couple of chocolate covered croissants from Great Canadian Superstore. I have a from Nana's and Papa's because they're that's how they say it. It's Nana's and Papa's Bakery in Parksville. I went in there looking for a donut that was actually supposed to be a chocolate dip. And what I ended up with in their sign was a Long John Boston cream.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to talk some weird crap going on, it's putting both the Boston cream and the Long John together. I've never seen it in a donut shop. It's the weirdest thing I've ever heard of, but my God, does it smell good. And I'm going to show you.
It looks good. You sent me that picture earlier, and it's glistening. So, yeah.
And it is so filled. So here, buddy, let's just do this because I'm so excited to get these in. Let's cheers. Episode 15. Let's do it.
Cheers.
Cheers, buddy.
Oh, and for the record, it's chocolate filled as well.
Oh, I see it.
Well, it's a little heavier than I expect a croissant to be, but the chocolate's actually real good. It doesn't taste like fake, overly sugary chocolate or anything. You look like you're going into diabetic shock, so it must be good.
I don't want it to stop. You know what? It's funny. We've done this a couple of times. This is episode 15. And I'm telling you right now, Mikey, that is probably the greatest donut I've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
I'm putting it down.
That's saying a lot.
I'm putting it down. Oh my God. I have
wow.
Mikey, I got goosebumps. Oh. I'm like in borderline.
I'm going to Parksville. I'm getting one of those donuts.
I'm like in borderline orgasmic levels of excitement here. Like I don't even know how to explain what's going on right now. My God, you have to go to Nana's and Papa's Bakery to go get their Long John Boston cream. I'm shivering because I'm pissed off that I'm going to have to wait another 25, 30 minutes to be able to have another bite of this for episode 16. Oh, hey, attaboy.
I'm officially on EI.
Attaboy. Represent.
Yeah.
Okay, coffee's in.
I'm going to spend it all in meth.
Donuts in my belly. Let's do this, dude. Okay, so let's break it down, Mikey. Same as always, what we end up doing is looking at a couple different categories. We look at mechanical.
I'm excited about tonight.
I know, same. So it's mechanical. How do the vehicles measure up against one another in power? Use of a police vehicle, right? So that's number 2. Number 3 is iconic level. Did the vehicle outshine the actors or actors using it? And was the vehicle undeniably one of the best parts of the film? And number 4, which is the finale, it's kind of the make it or break it kind of thing, is your favorite, the badassery. And that's pretty self-explanatory. So,
okay.
and on that point, so we got 2 different films, right? We've already talked about the vehicles. It's a 07 Chevy Tahoe versus the 98 Vauxhall Astra Mark IV. We'll talk about the vehicles themselves.
Vauxhall.
But let's get into the 2 films as we're learning a little bit more about the podcasting and that, and we're learning a little bit more about making sure that you and me don't get sued. We need to talk a little bit about the films. So what we're doing is we're actually referencing Bright, which is the 2017 film. It was made by Netflix or for Netflix by Overbrook Entertainment. Again, I'm going to put the caveat in there for you and me, Mikey. Please, those people at Netflix and Overbrook, don't sue us. We don't actually make any money from this podcast. There, we said it. It's out of there.
Well, and to be fair, we're providing an objective review on what is essentially fictional tale and how a vehicle had a role in that movie. So
I think it sounds like promo to me.
Yeah.
So in that film,
I think we're covered by the Creative Commons or whatever the hell it's called.
Yeah, exactly. So it's starring Will Smith, Joel Edgerton. I really like Joel Edgerton. I can never know how to pronounce her name. Noomi Rapace. She was from Sherlock Holmes, the second film. She was like the gypsy queen. And it was directed by David Ayer. And I got to tell you this one, Mikey, and I know we've reviewed a couple of the films. Ayer. Is it Ayer?
I thought it was Ayer, but...
Okay, Ayer works for me.
I'm terrible with names, so I'm probably the last person you want.
So little did I know that David Ayer, whatever it is, he was the writer of U571. He was also a writer of Training Day. He was a writer of SWAT. He was the writer, and I believe he did some of the producing in The Fast and the Furious. And he had everything, wrote, produced, and directed everything for End of Watch and Fury, 2 of my favorite movies.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, he's a guy that went icy in the credits, and so apologies to him if he somehow stumbles down a rabbit hole of the internet and actually sees or hears this. Apologies for not being able to pronounce his name correctly. But he's definitely a guy that puts out good quality product, and I know I'm going to enjoy whatever he's stuck his hands into because, you basically just listed what easily a whole bunch of things that I would have on like a top list of some kind, like.
Oh, absolutely.
my top 50 of all time or whatever would easily include probably all of those for different reasons. So
Yeah, I'd probably say top 20 for me. And there's going to be a whole different categories, but they're all going to be within the top 20. And then to move on to Hot Fuzz, Hot Fuzz was the 2007 Universal Pictures obviously release. Again, don't sue us, please. We don't make money. I'm going to put that caveat on every single film. Is that it's starring Simon Pegg, Nick Frost, obviously both of them from Shaun of the Dead. Directed by Edgar Wright, who did Baby Driver, The World's End, Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, Ant-Man, so on and so forth. Obviously, you know, Edgar Wright is kind of he's a unique taste in Hollywood, especially in British movies and that. And he did a fantastic job with this one as well, because you and I both absolutely love Hot Fuzz. And you and I both have like this weird fanboy thing for Bright going on as well, too.
absolutely, yeah.
So looking at those two films,
without a doubt, Hot Fuzz is one of my favorite cop films of all time. It's part of the Cornetto trilogy for those of us who are familiar with that little bit of cinematic wizardry. So it's definitely one that I'm quite happy watched probably way too many times. But
so here we go. We're going to get into our topics. Mikey, we've got the Chevy Tahoe. Now, for the stats on this one, you've amazed me in all the rest of the episodes, so I'm going to give you a hand because I know you've got 8-month-old baby brain at home, and you don't have a whole lot of time to be able to go and kick it into gear on this one. So,
yep.
The 07 Chevy Tahoe's got a 5.3-liter V8 engine. It's got 320 horse with 340 pound-foot torque, right, at 136 mile per hour max speed. I don't know what the hell that 136 mile per hour, but that's fast for a Tahoe SUV. What it is in kilometers per hour.
Well, and let's face it, 130 would be, what about 210? 210?
If you ever got a Tahoe up to 210, yeah, it's 130. It's like 136, I think I said. If you ever got a Tahoe up to 136 mile per hour,
218.871 kilometers per hour.
Jesus, so, you imagine screaming down the highway.
My crippled brain math wasn't too bad. So
I couldn't even imagine spinning out in a Tahoe. And I love those cars, man. I love them. I wish that I was able to drive one of those.
I think, again, because we're in the mechanical column of this, we definitely got to give some credit to just the raw power of the engine in the Tahoe, because there's no help from the aerodynamics of that vehicle. It is a brick. No. It is literally like, remember when you were a child and you took the big Lego block and you put the little Lego block on top of it and you're like, I got an SUV. Yeah, that's what it looks like.
And what was an SUV back then? Like a Jeep Commander or the Wagoneer, you know what I mean? And they did nothing with the aerodynamics and they just built the Tahoe. It was like, screw it, we'll just make it like that. Okay, so we've got that.
So
I mean,
it's props to the Tahoe.
Yeah, the Tahoe is going to take some muscle power when it comes to the actual mechanical side, because here comes the Pew Pew, the tiny little 1998 Vauxhall Astra Mark IV, which is a 2.0, so it's a 2-liter, 16-valve, 136 horsepower, which is actually not bad for a 4-cylinder, right?
Hey, it's good on gas.
208 kilometers an hour max speed. Now, the curb weight, I didn't even bother looking at.
Is the stats for the Vauxhall that you've got, is that for the civilian market Vauxhall, or is that for one that's actually set up for police interception tuning?
So I looked at that, and I looked for it to see if it was a PPV version of it. And apparently only in America, so America, they are the only ones that actually look at the vehicles like that. I looked it up to see if they had any tuning, if British vehicles had the tuning for police vehicles, other than the BMWs. The Vauxhalls, as far as I could find,
and the Volvos as well.
And the Volvos, yeah. And these did not have it.
They'll usually twin turbo stuff, so it's feel dirty giving credit to station wagon for its performance capability, but the police Volvos are actually pretty decent.
Exactly, right? But I mean, this particular one, I don't know, man. This was all I could find on it. And I looked it up as the Mark IV Hot Fuzz, British version. This is exactly, there's a whole bunch of websites that love British police vehicles. Like even more than we love police vehicles in North America. They love theirs. Yeah, so the Mark IV, it just is what it is. Mechanically speaking, it's a 4-cylinder up against this ridiculous 5.3 liter V8 engine. Mechanically speaking, I don't know about you, but I got to give it to the Tahoe.
Yeah, it'd be hard to not give it to the Tahoe for this column. I mean, if I was driving in the tight little rural roads of the UK, I certainly would not want a Tahoe. However, that's not what we're evaluating here. So hands down, mechanical advantage to the Tahoe.
Yeah, it almost seems, again, unfair how we're putting like when we did the F-150 up against the Navistar MXT. And you're like, how do you compare those two? Like one's a tank and the other one's a pickup. Like, are you absolutely shitting me?
Oh, so interesting little bit here. I watched Hobbs versus Shaw again recently, like just had it on in the background kind of thing. But right near the beginning of the movie, Hobbs is like out for brunch with his daughter or whatever.
That's the Ryan Reynolds
scene. And then it's like, yes. Yeah. So as he's getting ready to go for that, he actually hops into an F-150, very similar in style to the one from Walking Tall.
Really?
Yeah. So, and I'm like, oh, and I never had an opportunity to go and check to see if it actually was the same model F-150 or whatnot, but it's like very similar body style, a little bit lifted, but nothing crazy. It's just like, it's that bad boy truck, and I think it was kind of a neat little nod to the Walking Tall sort of F-150. So, and then obviously in the Navistar later, and just so yeah,
yeah. It's not even fair. But okay, so let's move into the use as a police vehicle. All right, so we've gone over this one in a couple of different rounds already, or matchups.
Yeah,
and
I gotta say this is actually a tough one for me to speak on because they both actually do it pretty well.
I know.
It's hard to pick one. The tightest one. They're both marked vehicles.
Yep.
Right? They both do what I refer to as that mundane police 101 work, right? Like, in Hot Fuzz, they're camping in their Vauxhall doing, even radar enforcement, right? They pull up to go and talk to Mr. Staker about his missing swan. So.
Piss taker.
Peter Ian
Staker. Yes, piss taker.
Oh, piss taker.
and even the radar at the very end of the radar when they pull over the director, right? Or the producer of the theater. And it's like, did you see what I did there? He's like, yeah, you hypnotized him. It's like, no, I did police work. Jesus.
So, well, and then the Tahoe, like they're out on patrol. Like it's about as North America as you get. Now, obviously, you got to have that whole fictional element. They're slightly more militarized of their work and their altered reality world that they live in and stuff. But it's actually a really tough one for me. What do you think on this one?
I think. Here's the deal. The Vauxhall, they do a lot of police work in that thing. And it's literally, like you said, it is just the buddy cop movie where they're sitting in the car together. They're doing traffic stops. They're doing community service events with it. I don't know how much more policing you could possibly get than that, especially in Britain and Canada, for example. But I mean, they have a chase. So they're using it as a police vehicle in their pursuit. If you look at the Tahoe, now they also use it for patrol. Guess what? A member of the what is it? The Light. Who's the guy with the big, huge claymore sword? I can't remember. It was something the Light. It's something Light. It's like it's a group that he belongs to that fights the the Dark Lord. But he gets in the back and he throws up in the back of it. How much more cop car can you possibly get than some drunk junkie throwing up in the back of the PC and having to hose it out? Right?
Yeah, well, exactly. Surly.
But I mean, like...
That was the character's name.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and it's... They do patrols. They do this. They end up using it. I mean, at one point, they use it as cover in their little shootout scene that they have there with the Inferni's hideout. There's a whole bunch of things going on. It's too tight. And honestly, in different ways, I have to give it a tie. Like, I can't think of one car that's going to have an edge over the other. And, and we'll talk about it a little bit later on the badassery as well, too, is that both of them end up losing a door as well, too, in their pursuit, in their chase.
Yeah. I think for me, I got to give it a slight edge to the Vauxhall in this category, just because they do more legitimate police work in it, right? Like there's a good quantity of the film that, if it's just the setting for dialogue between, Danny and Nicholas, is they're in the police car, they're policing, they're doing their job. And so the fact that they're, like you mentioned earlier, when they were doing their speed trap and they pull over the director guy, and I think the Vauxhall takes an edge just slightly for me because they do more real police work.
Okay, yeah,
I'm giving a hair's edge.
You're going Vauxhall. If I have to say, oh man, yeah. I mean, I'm so conflicted on this because I also like the fact that the Tahoe, they go out patrolling and they come across all of the the orcs, and they come across the orcs, and it's like the gangbangers orcs hanging out in the yard and like lifting the cars.
Yeah, I forgot it. Yeah,
they're doing that, but then at the same time,
because before they actually run into the Brights.
That's right. So they're doing those types of things, and as well as there's nothing more coppish than the guys pulling up on the front lawn. For the sake of interesting argument, I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to give that to me. I'm going to give it to the Tahoe. I don't know why. I have this feeling. I like the Vauxhall because it does more basic patrol, but I feel like the Tahoe, it has something to it. So I think we're going to end up being split on that one, buddy.
And I think you're right. You actually make a good point. I forgot about that scene in Bright with that kind of entry level patrol. So yeah, what I think it's a safe. I don't know if safe's the right word. I think it's a fair judgment to call that category raw.
Yeah, I think it's a draw. 100% it's a draw. We're moving on to the iconic level. All right. So you and I both love Hot Fuzz. You and I both love Bright. And we can appreciate those films for what they are and what they mean in policing, and what Hot Fuzz is really allows you to see the lighter side of everything. Iconic level, I wouldn't necessarily say either one of these vehicles necessarily is iconic more than the actors that wrote in them and used them and so on and so forth. But I would have to say, and this is just me, but I would have to say that after seeing Bright, that the Tahoe, this caged up Tahoe, classic LAPD black and white, just speaks, it is iconic to me. And if there is any iconic level there, that I will say that it probably edges it out. And I'd have to say that the Vauxhall itself, maybe it's because I don't have enough experience with seeing so many of the British vehicles.
I agree. I feel that the Tahoe is a little more iconic, both within the film and outside of it. I think the Tahoe has a little more actual police presence, and it resonates a little stronger as an image. The Vauxhall itself, I don't think ever made at strong impact. My personal experience with European policing involved Volvos and Peugeots and no Vauxhalls. Again, the Tahoe resonates more as the vehicle itself outside of the film, and I think it served its characters a little better than the Vauxhall did. I think because of that, while there was never any like iconic moments for the Tahoe to like truly shine as an icon itself, it put itself ahead of the Vauxhall just by sheer resonating imagery. When I think of LAPD, it's the Crown Vic black and white or like a Tahoe, right? And when I think any sort of European police car, it's not a Vauxhall.
Yeah, it's going to end up like you said. It's going to be like a Peugeot, Mercedes, BMW, something like that. A Volvo. Gotta love the Volvos. Gotta give the cred to the Volvos.
Particularly the Peugeot 206.
Yeah, so I think we're going to give that
the Peugeot 6 everywhere.
So I think we give that one to the Tahoe.
Agreed.
Okay, so I think we move on to the badassery. So the badassery, I'm actually going to be extremely unreasonable in this sense, because you can't beat Will Smith driving around, especially when he's in uniform. How often do you actually see Will Smith in a police uniform? Okay, which I thought was awesome for the movie, but it's not what we're talking about today. How often you see him driving around, especially in one, the slow motion shot where that vehicle gets absolutely pancaked by the sorcery going on with that wand.
Yeah.
But I will say the fact that Simon Pegg's character, Nicholas Angel, and Danny go flying into that thing, all kitted out, and do that giant jump into the miniature village.
Yes.
Like I know it wasn't Nicholas's, it wasn't, I always want to say Nicholas. I always want to say Nicholas Angel, but it wasn't Angel. It was actually the chief.
Sergeant Angle.
Yeah. And it was the chief and the guy from the grocery mart. It was, what's his name? Former James Bond.
Yeah. James Bond.
Yeah. Whatever. Oh God, he's horrible, James Bond. Timothy Dalton. Thank you. It was Timothy Dalton. They go flying over there. So, but it's the exact same car. They have two of the exact same car doing it. So here I'm going to say this.
Yeah.
I'm actually given the badassery because Simon Pegg's character, Nicholas Angel, actually makes it badass, especially with Danny beside him. I'm giving badassery to the Vauxhall in this one.
You know what? I like where you went with that, and I agree with your reasonings, and I will take it a step further and say I'm going to give it to the Vauxhall as well, because I find the Tahoe is a bit of a try-hard, and I don't like that. The extra caging on it and stuff like that, I think it was just far too supplemental than what the Vauxhall just did purely on its own. And again, like you said, lost the door, crazy air time, and like, yeah, sure, it didn't have to compete with sorcery, but you know, it's
the sorcery.
Yeah, I think the Vauxhall deserves the badassery because let's face it, it's coming from a behind run anyway with its little fuel efficient four banger, so it serves its purpose more than well enough in a very impressive way. So
okay.
Yeah. It's
So,
no Maranello, but I'll give it the badass.
It's no Maranello or 911. I'll tell you that much. Okay, so here's the deal. We have basically outscored on this one, and we had a bit of a tie. Now, I'm going to go back to the use as a police vehicle. Okay, there was the only one, because number one, mechanical, went to the Tahoe. Number two, went a draw. Number three, the iconic level, went to the Tahoe. Okay, and then number four was the badassery, went to the Vauxhall. I am actually looking back and thinking about it and how they use it as a police vehicle. I am willing to bend on this one and go a mile for you, Mikey, and say that I will go with the Vauxhall for the use of a police vehicle. And unfortunately, that leads us at a tie again.
Oh, seriously? Oh, man. Yeah.
But the thing is, I really want to see that Vauxhall.
Yeah?
I want to see that Vauxhall move on. I want to see the Vauxhall up against the F-Shack.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. More foreshadowing. It's coming.
So,
Dirty Mike special.
It's whatever. There's,
you know what? This particularly in that police category, again, I think the Vauxhall just has that hair's edge the more I think about it. You know, we're forgetting one thing. Danny is essentially being field trained in that Vauxhall. So you can give it that one more element as well.
Okay. So
right? He learns how to fucking take notes and more. So
okay,
Vauxhall all the way. It's a draw. Send it to the masses.
That's it.
Break the tie.
That's it. We're putting it to Instagram and into Facebook and all the rest of our wonderful social media outlets. So that's what we're gonna do, Mikey. So we've got the Tahoe versus the Vauxhall, and this is gonna go to you, the actual listener. You're gonna be deciding who actually moves on in this match. So unfortunately, we had two fantastic vehicles that I wanted to see move on, one or the other, but we had it moving on. And you know what we're going to do? We're just going to put it to you. We're going to decide what happens. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to the Instagram on this one. We're going to give it to you guys, the listeners, to be able to decide who is actually going to move on to the next round. Is it going to be the Chevy Tahoe from Bright, or is it going to be the 98 Vauxhall Astra Mark IV from Hot Fuzz? I would personally like to see maybe the Vauxhall move on. Anybody wants to choose and do whatever. If you want to be a bit of a jerk and go and put the Tahoe up there as number one, I'm good with that too. Because listen, a reasonable person would pick the Vauxhall. But this podcast is all about being unreasonable. So on that point, we're going to conclude it here. It's going to the masses. Like you said, Mikey, everybody, thank you very much for joining us. Remember to check out the podcast Download as many episodes as you want. Share the word. Put it out to the masses, the people you work with, the people that you know in law enforcement. If it be first responder work, direct them over to Spotify, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio app. Download the podcast. Let us know what you think. Let us know. Drop us some DMs. Whatever you got to do, however you communicate with us back and forth. Let us know what you like and what you want to see. Mikey, closing words if your actual recording works.
I'd like to thank everybody for joining what is probably our closest competition of the Hollywood police car matchup so far. As sappy as that sounds, this is a cool episode.
And we had fun with it. The next one's even going to be even better.
Especially all the Dr. Roboto moments.
All right, guys, be safe out there.
That's the
and
audio
we'll see you guys in a couple episodes.
Lights, sirens, heroes. You're listening to the Unreasonable Grounds podcast.